Today, we travel to the state of Texas, more precisely to Friendswood, an affluent suburb in the greater Houston area, where in 2002 the Harris couple lived. The central figure of our story, Clara Suarez Harris, was born in Bogotá, Colombia, on the 3rd of February 1958. At the age of 6, Clara lost her father, leaving her mother to care for the family. Her mother worked extremely hard, sewing clothes for wealthier residents of Bogotá to support the household. Life was far from easy, and it is perhaps unsurprising that Clara dreamed of escaping poverty. She wanted to secure a better life for herself and her loved ones, and from a young age she applied herself diligently to her studies. Clara aspired to gain a professional qualification and dreamed of moving to the United States. As a teenager, she avoided parties, and in her family, faith had been a cornerstone for generations. She was a calm, reserved individual, yet ambitious, intelligent, and determined. Clara always adhered to principles and rules. She began her journey in dentistry in Colombia before moving to the United States to advance her career. In 1990, she earned her dental degree from Washington University in St. Louis, a prestigious institution that prepared her for professional practice. Following graduation, she completed a residency at the University of Texas School of Dentistry in Houston, honing her skills as both a dentist and orthodontist. Clara was very happy. Her dreams had come true. She was living in the United States and practicing her chosen profession. At that point, seeking romance was not a priority. Her main focus was finding work and achieving financial stability. But in 1991, everything changed. Clara was working as a dentist at Castle Dental Center, where she met a man who would capture her attention, David Harris. Also a dentist, he was a year older than Clara. Little is known about his early childhood, except that he was born in Newport, Arkansas, on the 4th of November, 1957, and later moved to Texas for his studies. David excelled academically, ranking second in his class, and quickly secured a job after graduation. Unfortunately, his professional success did not translate to personal happiness. By 1991, David was already divorced, a loss he had felt deeply. He had a daughter, Lindsay, from his previous marriage, whom he saw regularly. According to his ex-wife, their marriage had ended because David was overly focused on his career and had little time for her. David asked Clara out on a date, and she agreed. Their relationship developed quickly. Both were in their 30s and thinking about settling down. They soon discussed marriage and wed on Valentine's Day, the 14th of February 1992, at the Nassau Bay Hilton Hotel in Houston, Texas. David's daughter immediately took to her new stepmother. Clara had been part of Lindsay's life from an early stage, treating her as her own daughter, forming a strong bond between them. Shortly afterwards, David's ex-wife, along with his daughter, moved to Ohio, which limited her contact with Lindsay. The couple decided to share custody. Lindsay would stay with her mother during the school year and spend the summer with her father. David and Clara purchased a beautiful home in Friendswood, where they led a peaceful life. Clara adapted well to her new role, adoring her husband and doting on him. After work, she would shop and prepare his meals. David reciprocated, showering Clara with affection and gifts. Following their marriage, David began searching for a location to open his own dental practice, a long-held dream. With Clara by his side, everything seemed more achievable. He eventually opened Space Center Orthodontics in Clear Lake City, Texas, one of the couple's most successful ventures, generating approximately $500,000 annually. The practice was named after the nearby Johnson Space Center, reflecting the area's connection to NASA. Dr. Harris gained a reputation as a meticulous and dedicated orthodontist, and his practice became known for its high standards and quality care. Clara followed in her husband's footsteps, opening her own dental practice in Lake Jackson, Texas, under the name Clara L. Harris, DDS. She specialized in general dentistry and orthodontics, building a successful patient base and professional reputation. She occasionally collaborated with David, maintaining her independence while supporting the family's combined dental ventures. The couple's business thrived, and they were financially secure. Anyone who met them remarked on their happiness, describing the Harris marriage as one of genuine love and mutual respect. They motivated and inspired one another, a beautiful example of a supportive, loving partnership. They dreamed of having children, but despite their efforts, it proved difficult. After spending a significant amount of money and trying various methods, they eventually succeeded. In 1998, Clara gave birth to twin sons, Brian and Bradley, fulfilling their greatest dream. Initially, Clara reduced her work commitments to care for the children, excelling in her new role. David praised her as an exceptional wife and mother, proudly speaking of her to friends and family. Clara hosted birthday parties for her extended family, always drawing large crowds who admired the harmony and love in the Harris household. Clara remained devoted to her husband, as he was to her, frequently praising him to friends and colleagues. They called each other several times a day, always ending with, "I love you." Everything seemed perfect, until, as you may have guessed, it was not. Trouble began in 2001, when David hired a new receptionist, 39-year-old Gail Bridges. Gail had previously been married to a successful insurance agent, Steve, with whom she had 3 children. She had lived a life of luxury, but after her children grew older, she began to focus on herself, pursuing fitness classes, beauty treatments, and even cosmetic surgery. In April 1999, Gail filed for divorce from Steve, citing discord and personality conflicts. Steve countersued, accusing her of cruelty and an affair with her best friend, Julie Ann Knight. These allegations were never substantiated and were denied by both women. Their divorce was finalized in December 2000. Julie, too, divorced her husband at the same time, sparking speculation and gossip about their friendship. By 2000, Gail was divorced, living in a smaller home, and financially constrained, which compelled her to seek employment. At that time, Clara was working long hours, which did not sit well with her husband. The children were now a little older, so she had more flexibility. Moreover, after the children's arrival, David felt somewhat neglected, as Clara's attention was understandably focused on the boys. Despite occasional minor disagreements, everything appeared to be fine between them, but, as you might guess, it was far from it. David's new employee, Gail, devoted a great deal of attention to him, and she was undeniably attractive. Over time, rumors began circulating in the clinic that their relationship was more than professional, and indeed it was. In 2002, David invited Gail to dinner, supposedly a casual work gathering, which quickly escalated into something far deeper. Their affair developed rapidly, and colleagues began to notice, as the pair hardly attempted to conceal their romance. Many of them knew Clara and were uncomfortable with the situation. One such colleague, Diane Sherrill, decided to inform Clara of her husband's behavior. Diane had witnessed David and Gail together at the clinic after hours, believing they were alone. Clara had her suspicions, but it was still difficult to believe. She confronted David, who admitted to the affair. Clara was devastated, particularly when David admitted that he was unsure about his feelings for his mistress. Shocked, Clara resolved to call a lawyer to discuss divorce proceedings. David, however, insisted that he would do whatever it took to save their marriage. Clara set strict conditions. He had to end the affair and attend couples therapy. David agreed. It was July 2002, and David's daughter Lindsay was spending the summer with him. Lindsay, now 16, wanted to become a dentist. Naturally, David supported her ambition, often teaching her about the profession in his office. Lindsay spent enough time at her father's practice to know who Gail was and to have heard the circulating gossip. Lindsay also decided to speak to Clara about the rumours, confirming that there were whispers of David and Gail locking themselves in the office, going out to lunch together during the day, and even being caught in compromising situations. Determined to confront the situation directly, Clara visited her husband's office to speak with Gail. Gail reportedly said little, embarrassed by the entire scenario. Clara allegedly fired her on the spot, while a humble David waited outside. Clara, meanwhile, sought to understand why her husband had strayed and what Gail had that she lacked. Desperate to save her marriage, she questioned David about the affair in detail. He reportedly confessed that he and Gail could be together up to 3 times a day and still not feel satisfied, something that prompted Clara to declare she would double that number. Clara also demanded a comparison between herself and Gail. She drew up a chart with 2 columns, one for her name and one for Gail's, asking David to assess various traits. The results supposedly showed that Clara was better educated and a skilled businesswoman, whereas Gail listened to him better. Physical appearance was another criterion, and David reportedly described Clara as overweight while noting his preference for Gail's breast implants. Following this conversation, Clara began a personal transformation. She booked appointments with a hairdresser, a manicurist, and a plastic surgeon, paying a deposit for liposuction and breast augmentation. She also purchased new lingerie. Another complaint David had raised was that Clara worked too much, leaving him with insufficient attention, so she decided to devote more time to family and scale back her professional commitments. Friends noticed a dramatic change in Clara's behavior. She frequently spoke about Gail and David, determined to save her marriage. She exercised intensively, and her appearance quickly began to change. Clara even obtained Gail's phone number. Accounts of Clara's interactions with Gail differ. Some say she was furious and threatened her. A friend, however, claimed Clara called to thank Gail, saying that the affair had opened her eyes and could make her a better wife. It is possible that both versions are true. The couple focused on repairing their marriage. David confessed his infidelity to his pastor, asking for forgiveness, and they attended marriage counseling. They also met with David's deeply religious parents, to whom he admitted everything and promised to improve, a gesture Clara considered important and respectful, intended to guarantee honesty. David suggested meeting Gail to formally end the affair. Clara was hesitant, but agreed. David arranged to meet her at a restaurant, which, paradoxically, looked more like a date than a breakup. Clara, keen to understand Gail's motives, investigated her divorce history and drew her own conclusions, that Gail might prefer women and had seduced David for financial gain. In her mind, she still tried to rationalize her husband's behavior rather than accept that the blame lay squarely with him. Determined to know exactly how the meeting would unfold, Clara hired a private detective from Blue Moon Agency. David told Clara that he would meet Gail at the restaurant. However, the detective, who had been following him from work, observed him heading to the Hilton Hotel instead. There, in the hotel restaurant, he met Gail. The detective could not hear their conversation, but David's acquaintances later revealed that he had no intention of ending the affair. He confessed that he felt strongly for Gail and wished to continue seeing her in secret. Gail reportedly confirmed this, appearing outraged during the encounter, and eventually gave him an ultimatum: her or his wife. Gail stood and left, and David followed her to the parking lot, talking for several minutes, unaware they were still under surveillance. Meanwhile, Clara could not remain calm. She drove with her stepdaughter Lindsay to the restaurant, but David was not there. They then went to Gail's house. Again, no sign of him. Frustrated, Clara called the detective agency, discovering that her husband had rented a hotel room and gone there with Gail, the very same hotel where they had married 10 years earlier. Enraged, Clara stormed into the hotel, searching for David. Failing to find him, she asked Lindsay to call him, pretending one of the twins was sick, urging him to return home. David said he would, and Clara waited in the hotel lobby. Suddenly the elevator opened, and David emerged holding Gail's hand. Betrayed once more, Clara lost control, lunging at Gail, pulling her hair and striking her. Witnesses reported Clara shouting at Gail, calling her names and accusing her of destroying her marriage. Hotel staff quickly separated them and escorted them out. Lindsay, present with Clara, was furious with her father, reportedly slapping or hitting him in anger, blaming him for the scene and his betrayal. Witnesses confirmed that as they left the hotel, David chose to stay with Gail, telling Clara he would remain with her. But for Clara, this was not the end of the confrontation. Certain that David and his mistress would head to another hotel, she and her stepdaughter got into Clara's Mercedes, parked near Gail's car. Soon, in the car park, they spotted David walking with Gail toward her vehicle. Witnesses testified that Clara revved the engine, accelerated, and struck David with her car, throwing him to the ground. Instead of stopping, Clara circled the parking lot and ran over him multiple times, while Lindsay, in the passenger seat, screamed for her to stop. David was killed instantly from multiple blunt force injuries. The entire incident was captured on videotape by the private investigator Clara had hired, who was still monitoring David at the hotel. This sequence, the affair, the confrontation, and the fatal moment, became the central focus of Clara's trial. When the car finally stopped, Lindsay exited first, crying. Clara then stepped out. Witnesses reported that she appeared shocked, distraught, and in disbelief, tears streaming down her face as she displayed extreme emotional distress. Some accounts indicate she ran to her husband, kneeling or holding him, crying and screaming in anguish. Clara did not attempt to flee. She remained at the scene until the police arrived and took her into custody. For David, however, it was already too late, and Clara was arrested. The case quickly became highly publicized after footage of the incident was leaked, sparking widespread attention and commentary. After her husband's death, Clara appeared deeply remorseful. At times, she struggled to comprehend that David was gone. It seemed clear that she had not planned this. She had loved her husband and tried desperately to make their marriage work. She had altered her appearance and behavior for him, doing everything in her power to save their relationship. But when she saw David walking hand in hand with another woman, she lost control. In 2003, her trial began. Clara's defense argued sudden passion, claiming she had been provoked by intense emotional distress upon discovering her husband's infidelity. The prosecution, however, emphasized the premeditation implied by Clara bringing her car to the hotel and following David and Gail in the parking lot. After deliberation, the jury convicted Clara Harris of murder. In 2004, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the crime. David Harris's parents, Gerald and Mildred Harris, endured a profound emotional journey following their son's tragic death at the hands of their daughter-in-law. Initially, they stood by Clara during her trial. However, their relationship with her deteriorated after the verdict. Clara's decision to place their twin grandsons with family friends rather than with them caused significant distress, leaving the grandparents feeling betrayed and heartbroken. They had hoped to care for the twins during Clara's incarceration. At the time of their father's murder, Clara and David Harris's twin sons, Brian and Bradley, were just 4 years old. Following Clara's conviction and 20-year sentence, the boys were placed in the care of family friends and relatives, ensuring stability and support while their mother served her time. They were largely kept out of the public eye, their privacy protected as they navigated life under the shadow of the tragedy that had shattered their family. The events left lasting emotional scars. David Harris's daughter, Lindsay, expressed feelings of abandonment and confusion, particularly after learning of her grandparents' support for Clara. She stated, "I don't know why they're doing this to my poor dad," describing estrangement from them. As of September 2025, Clara is a free woman. She was released from prison on the 11th of May 2018 after serving 15 years of her 20-year sentence. Following her release, she was placed on parole, which she successfully completed on the 10th of February 2023, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety. David Harris was a devoted father and skilled orthodontist who had built a successful career. His choice to engage in an affair caused immense pain to his wife and family, but he did not deserve the violent way his life ended. His death was a profound loss for his children, family, and everyone who knew him, a tragic reminder of how moments of betrayal and anger can lead to irreversible consequences. Thank you for listening to the end of this sad story. Until next time.